Spooky season is upon us. For some people, it's year round. So we're going to talk about reservations that ghost, forgotten orders that may haunt you in your sleep. Welcome to Nightmare Fuel, where we're going to share out restaurant horror stories. And I'm really excited to have Lindsay Holl on with me today. Lindsay is Olo's senior sales engineer. And Lindsay, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
You've obviously got some deep F&B roots, especially in the area of catering, from franchise or corporate. So I know, or even your own business. We'll probably hear more about that. But let me turn it to you. I want to hear more from you.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. So excited to be here. A little nervous about maybe what the stories we're going to talk about. I've been in food and beverage my entire career, from starting at Cold Stone Creamery and scooping ice cream at 13 to working every front of house position, back of house position, and even managing fine dining steakhouses. I'm really excited to be here at Olo. I've also owned my own catering company. So I say all that to say, like, I've spent a lot of time in a restaurant, many long shifts, many holidays, and my husband pokes fun at me because I still have my non-slips in the closet because you never know when you're needed to go back on the floor. It's might been 6 years since I've served a table, but goodness, I think once a month I still have a nightmare about forgetting to bring ranch to table 17.
I love it. Heard on the nightmares. I still to this day will wake up sometimes and I can hear the printer going from my restaurant kitchen line days. So the struggle is real.
Yeah, that's a sound you'll never forget.
Never, never. And I actually saw somebody, actually, this is off script, but I saw somebody put their hand through one of the ticket spindles once, and that is nightmare fuel in and of itself. So, with
Oh,
that
that's
being
an
said,
impressive expediter.
yes. Yeah. So I'm going to go through some stories and Lindsay, like buckle up. Here we go. So while working at a food court, I was the closing manager on a shift that should have been from 4 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. As part of my like closing checks, I walked through the soda room to make sure all empty syrups were changed out, as one does.
Yeah.
And when I got there, I noticed a layer of water across the floor. I cleaned it up. I went about the rest of my night. Then at 1:30 a.m., I had this gut feeling that I needed to go back into that room and check it before leaving. When I did, there was about an inch of water back on the floor. I eyed the carbonated water line to discover a leak once hidden by a zip tie, which is cool and awesome. Okay, great. So, needless to say, I didn't leave at 1:30 a.m. Rather, spent the whole like wee hours of the morning on my birthday squeegeeing out a room of sticky water, which is gross, and syrups in my dress clothes. I got home just in time to meet my roommate in her kitchen before she went and opened the same food court I had just spent my life closing.
That is the worst. And the fact that it was their birthday, I think, is just the cherry on top I didn't want to hear. That's the grossest. I think I'll never forget that sticky syrup feeling of changing out those lines. And oh gosh, to have that water come back. Did you ever play the prank where you'd have the new people have to water or empty out the water line on the tea urns?
100%. And then
It
the
kind
other
of makes
one
me think of
was,
that.
yeah, it was like sharpen the squeegee. Did you ever do
Yes.
that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Or can you go to the basement? Of course, no basement exists, and go get this thing. Yeah, those were fun times. Like we were probably terrible people for doing that.
I know I think about that now and I'm like, I can't believe I ever participated in that. But I never, I mean, that's the worst. Like those type of moments where something would happen and you're like, how is this happening? Where is this water coming from? What do I do? But I just think that shows the resilience from the restaurant industry. Like you see a problem and you fix it. And that was like always the tone is if you see it, you say something and you fix it. And then you move on to the next thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, kudos to this person for having that level of ownership and accountability, and for making their non-slip shoes even stickier. Uh,
Exactly.
okay, next story. So next up, I've got uh, many years ago, I took a phone order from a lady who just wanted a Caesar salad. No problem at all. Will that be all? I said. And I don't want any Parmesan croutons, pepper, or dressing on it, she responded. And I say, but that's all that comes on it. So you just want lettuce? And she said, yes, that's correct. Caesar salad with no toppings like I specified. Okay, ma'am, that'll be $8.99. plus tax. Should be ready in 10 to 15 minutes. I'll never forget that order. How do you feel about that one?
That's too much. I think that reminds me of like when people would be like, absolutely no tomatoes. I have an allergy. And then I wouldn't bring ketchup, and they'd be like, where's the ketchup for the fry? But goodness, I hope that was good lettuce for $8.99.
Next up, so third story, we've got, I'll just kick it off. When I first started working as a hostess at a famous theme park, I was helping bus tables. Fun fact, I used to be a bus person. Okay. While using one of those rolling carpet sweepers, I swung my arm back and my fist went straight into a toddler's face as she had a full-on black eye from it. Ouch. Probably not what the family was imagining in the rest of the pictures for their family vacation, but they were very kind about it and knew it was an accident. And then we proceeded to comp their $600 meal.
Wow. What theme park are you dining for $600?
Right? That
That kills me. That reminds me of like dropping the trays or hearing the crash of food. Like, you know, it was no one doing it on purpose, but like immediately your just heart sinks for them.
talk about, yeah, nightmare fuel punching. You will never forget punching a toddler in the eye because
No,
you're rolling the carpet sweeper thingy. Did you ever use one of those, by the way?
I did. I did. I'm glad carpet's not very prevalent in restaurants anymore.
That has a special way of cultivating like a odoriferous funk that is part of maybe our nightmare fuel. So, Lindsay, your turn. Go for it.
Oh gosh, I think two really come to mind for me. One was I was serving at a steakhouse, and this was back in the day before there was like electronic host stands and all these things. Like we had a Rolodex of customer information. So I'm talking about like a 3x5 card here that would have the customer's name and like all these details we had learned about the guest. And I'm like 3 months in, and they're like, Lindsay, you've got a VIP at your table. Here's your dossier, your card. And I'm like, okay, great. It's like size 5 print. It's so tiny. There's so much content on there. And I'm like quickly trying to look at it and be like, okay, I got the gentleman's name. I can go up to the table. I can greet him. We're good. I'll just have to find time to read the rest of this like in a minute or two. Cause I only got 30 seconds to greet the table. So I go over there, Mr. Smith, so excited to have you joining us again tonight. May I start you off with your usual cocktail? Happened to be a Manhattan. Great. So I'm going up to the bar where I'm like, again, dark lighting, dim lighting. I'm trying to read this card. I go to garnish the cocktail. The cocktail spills and hence takes away everything that was on the card. And that is like multiple servers, many years building all this detail about the guest. And I'm like freaking out because I'm 3 months in. He's a big VIP, and like I've only hit the drink. I've got like the whole
Brutal.
rest of the meal to go. So like the cold sweats start, and I'm like, well, okay, well, I'll just fake it till I make it and we'll go through it. So I get the gentleman's order. I put in the steak, medium, no problem. The steaks comes out, he cuts into it. Looks like a perfect medium to me. Oh no, it wasn't his medium. Because little did I know on the card, his medium really meant a medium well, but he didn't want to say that in front of his peers. So he throws the steak on the table. The manager has to come out, comp the meal. She pulls me into their office. And if anybody knows me, I am not someone that wants to be pulled into an office. Like I try to excel and make sure that like I'm doing everything above and beyond. And immediately I like just start bawling. And she's like, how did you not do all this? Like it's all on the dossier. And I pull out like the dripping wet dossier from my like server pocket. And I'm like, I spilled when I was at the bar garnishing the drink and everything is gone. And I just think about that because I'm like, and today, when I get the pleasure of like talking to brands about host or engage, I'm like, I would have like killed for that. Like all of that information being at my fingertips and being able to be shared amongst any staff member without relying on like a piece of paper, it just would have been life changing. And I still remember the man today. I had the pleasure of serving him multiple times afterwards. It was fine, but I will tell you, I've never not thought about that moment.
The trauma is real. Yeah. Well, kudos to you for like muscling through that situation, that is tough though. Like I'm like you in that like I don't love to be pulled into an office or, like mess up, or feel like I messed up. That's not fun. Okay, I have a question though. Did he throw the steak on the table? Is that
Yes,
is that what he
he was.
said?
Yes, he was a very like peculiar, had the things the way he wanted it. And so as soon as he cuts into it, he's like, "This isn't medium." The table goes up, and in my mind, the steak flies 15 feet in my memory. Like it's just huge. And then it crashes to the table, and everybody is like stone cold silent. I think everybody in the restaurant is staring at me at this point, and I like immediately just want to crawl into a corner. And if I just hadn't have spilled a little cherry juice on that 3x5 card, who knows where the night would have gone.
Okay, wow, that's a lot. I feel for you though. So let's go for number two. What's the second story?
Yeah, I think the second one, you actually brought it up a little bit earlier. I was going to come back to like still hearing the sounds of the restaurant in my sleep, but instead of mine being the ticket line, it was like tablets and the ringing of the orders. So I spent some time working in a restaurant, and we didn't have like any of our orders come through our POS for like Uber and all of those things. And so I was tasked as like the host, like front of house manager to manage our host stand and then manage all the tablets and enter them into the POS. And those things were just going off time and time again. So I hear all of those little chimes in my sleep of like remembering to get those orders and then put them into the POS because then the drivers are coming in. And so that was like just a nightmare within itself. And I would have loved to have had a better solution there. So that's like the next big one. And then I have like one more horror story. So to take it to my catering days,
Okay.
because we're like super manual then. We weren't really like into technology. So if like somebody wanted a catering order, they called me. I would write it down. I'd put it into a spreadsheet. I'd tell my kitchen staff, like, hey, we have this event coming up. Well, I might have said yes too many times for one Tuesday lunch. And I get a call about 10:30 on Tuesday from a guest, and she goes, Lindsay, hey, just confirming you're still ready to bring lunch for 20 folks. We just wanted to let you know that the elevator isn't working to go up. Like you'll just have to go up the stairs. And I'm like looking through my notes and I'm like, 20 for lunch. I only have like this one private party and I have like box lunches for 15 here. Where's this 20 for lunch? And I'm like quickly, frantically like, oh yeah, remind me what time were we supposed to be there? And she's just like, yeah, at 12:15. And so I play it cool on the call. I'm like, yeah, 12:15, lunch for 20, we'll be there. So then I book it into the kitchen. I tell my kitchen staff, I'm like, we've got 20 minutes to find food out of nowhere to pull together. I need you to go to this location. You go to that location. I'm going to drive to this one. Again, that sweat is coming where you're just like, why does this all have to live in my head and not have tools for me to take these orders and like manage them? So those are like based on the different roles I've run through the restaurant industry or like areas where I'm just like, gosh, I wish I had Olo then. Like my life would have been a whole lot easier.
I got the cold sweats like when you were telling that story. I was feeling the anxiety that you had maybe like even just a glimmer of it that you had gone through. And like you were basically middleware. I mean,
Yeah,
you were acting as that, but as human,
as humans.
humans make like we forget stuff, we maybe write something down and maybe that piece of paper gets destroyed or taken away or whatever. Like all those things are like you're right. Like we there's a better way. And I'm so happy to work for a company that enables like we say hospitality at scale, right? Like that is real. Like those things are problems of the past that are
Yeah.
solvable.
Let the tech help you so you don't have the nightmares and you can focus on the customers and their experience. I just think about how much more I would have gotten done in the day if I had those tools. So hopefully those don't have as many spooky nightmares like we did.
Yes. I'll give you one more prank that we used to do. We used to
Yeah.
have a steam machine for steaming manicotti at this Italian restaurant I worked at. And we actually asked somebody to collect the steam and store it in the walk-in. So they were sitting there, like putting steam in a bag, taking that bag of hot air into the walk-in cooler, wrapping it up and putting it on the shelf for the next day. So we'll leave you at that.
Tell me they labeled it so it was first in, first out.
FIFO, yes, 100%. That wraps up today's episode. Make sure your notifications are on because next week we have Elena Sullivan who joins me. And let's just say one of our stories ends with a trip to the ER. Until then, keep the scaries off the menu.